Hello everybody and welcome back to Spacedock. I'm SOJOURN and today we're looking at some of the ways the longest running sci-fi franchises continue to evolve and change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. The two biggest franchises here are of course Star Wars and Star Trek. Both of these have expanded themselves in many ways, with new TV shows, movies and games in many different styles. Trek has a long tradition of moving the franchise forward in time and tone, though often meeting resistance from its fanbase. Between the two though, I feel like modern Star Wars is the more interesting one to talk about because of how samey a lot of it got. After the sequel trilogy, things felt fresh with the first season of The Mandalorian having its own feel. It explored a side of things that hadn't been seen much in live action before, particularly the moments when he visited out-of-the-way places like that shrimp fishing village. That stuff was great, fleshing out the Star Wars setting in new and interesting ways, showing little slices of life for regular people. But following seasons and new shows kinda just went back to the same old stuff we've seen a lot of before. Overuse of Tatooine, endless cameos, often a lack of quality and care. Then we got Andor, which blew everything else away with its different tone and sources of inspiration. It's a very high quality political and spy thriller, very far from the adventure stories that came before. As with Season 1 of Mando, it felt like something new within Star Wars, rather than just more Star Wars, which is an important distinction, especially when there's a sense of Star Wars fatigue going around. And fatigue is exactly what the sponsor of today's video, Manta Sleep and their high quality sleep masks, can help with. As the days get longer, later sunsets can disrupt your circadian rhythm, making it harder to get to sleep and making you feel tired the next day, which is where a Manta sleep mask can help, completely blacking out the light with pressure-free soft eye cups to help you drift off to sleep and keeping your circadian rhythm intact. The breathable, durable materials on the highly adjustable masks are designed to be comfortable for any sleeping position, featuring straps that sit above your ears and ventilation holes for airflow. You can even swap out the head strap and eye cups to find the combination that fits you the best. Beyond just blocking out light, there's also the Manta Sound Mask. Its razor-thin Bluetooth headphones let you listen to whatever soothing sounds you like, perfect for blocking out daytime noise for meditating or having a nap, or just to help you sink into snoozyland. The first 500 customers to shop during the upcoming sale from May 26th to June 8th will get a free sleep accessories kit. So visit the Manta Sleep website and use the discount code in the description and pinned comment below to get 10% off. One of the more important but subtle ways that Andor built out the setting was how it added in a lot of ordinary people items. Convenience stores, apartments, travel agents, a multi-story car park, television shows watched by bored security guards, planetary mass transit. These touches are part of why it felt so grounded and real, because we can all relate to them, whereas a good portion of other Star Wars media avoids that, going for a more escapist and heroic feel. All those things are a side of the setting we've rarely seen in detail before. Stuff like this is where we see exactly how everyday people live their lives in the setting, and adds so much to a franchise as a whole. On the face of it, it seems like a silly thing to care about, but it's important to be reminded of all the normal people that are impacted by the larger events that the franchise is usually about. I also find it helps a lot with immersion, which then goes on to help foster a sense of personal contact with the media. Plus, it's also just interesting to see the different ways that these things are done in different locations across the galaxy. It's another way of instilling flavour into each place. Ferrix was an out-of-the-way working-class town, so its public transport is a worn-down flying bus. Coruscant is the heart of the galaxy, so it has metro systems going everywhere. The coffee house on Gorman is different to the dive bars we've seen on Tatooine. The other recent Star Wars project that did a great job of building on what Star Wars could be is Skeleton Crew. At its heart, it's still a big ol' adventure, but it takes inspiration from pirate stories and classic 80s movies like E.T. and most obviously The Goonies. This pushing of the envelope away from fighting wars and space wizards is the really important part, since a lot of the problems with modern Star Wars was just there being too much of that other stuff, and it was often just not very good. Beyond that, Skeleton Crew also does a really good job of adding new stuff to the universe with the highly managed society with the suburbs and its connection to the Old Republic, and also a lot of the fleshing out of the pirates that the setting has used a lot of for this post-Empire era. I'd argue that even Ahsoka does this expansion of the setting pretty well, with its path out of the galaxy where it builds on the lore of the witches and hints at more of the myth behind the Force. Yeah, the show is a lot worse than the other two I highlighted, but it takes things in a different direction to other Disney content and builds up the fantasy side of things, with hints at an ancient, forgotten era. Of course, there's other long-running sci-fi properties that have evolved and grown like this over their lifetimes. Alien has done this basically right from the start, with Aliens being a different type of movie, a trend that largely continued through every installment. Prometheus is the most notable modern example though, since it introduced a lot of big ideas with the engineers and black goo, which Covenant did try to build on but just didn't land. Romulus did a much better job of integrating that concept into its own story and the setting at large. Plus, it included a window into the world of normal people just going about their lives. Another massive franchise is Warhammer 40k, which was deliberately stagnant for much of its life. But over this past decade or so, things actually started moving forwards. The status quo was changed up, and alongside that, a lot of new stuff has been added. The Primarchs are back, there's new armies like Admech and Genestealers, and even the Squats from the ancient past of the late 1900s got reforged into the leagues of Votan. There's a bunch of spin-off tabletop games and some very successful installments in other media like Space Marine 2. The big refresh of the setting has helped it to become more popular and successful than ever before. There's also the whole world of anime that I'm not that familiar with, but from what I can tell, Gundam is the big one to mention for this topic specifically. From what I've been led to believe, Witch from Mercury was a fresh take on things, and G-Corks goes further with setting things into a different timeline. All the old classics get new looks, and there's things for new and old fans to enjoy and be surprised by. It's a good example of a different way to expand a franchise, though obviously the concept of alt timelines and multiverses and stuff is hardly a new one. And to be fair, this may actually come under the umbrella of reboots, which is a bit of a different thing but can still have a similar effect for refreshing a franchise. And that's because new takes and fresh ideas are absolutely vital for long-running franchises to continue being successful, to bring in new blood who may go on to enjoy that older content just as much as the new stuff. But also, this evolution and being inspired by things outside of the franchise is good, because it's not great when a franchise feels like it's only been inspired by itself. The first entries in it obviously didn't do that. They took ideas from all sorts of places and mixed it with the lived experiences of those that made it to create something new and interesting. When later entries don't do that, it ends up feeling like a photocopy of a photocopy, or one of those endlessly recirculated and horribly compressed memes. Yeah, the original image is kind of there, but it's clearly worse. That isn't to say that always happens though. Alien Romulus, while it does add new stuff, is also very derivative in a lot of ways. The key thing here is that it does it well, at least outside of the more egregious callbacks. Nothing was going to save the "stay away from her" line. That wasn't necessary at all and actively detracted from that scene in my opinion. Alien fans in the audience, what do you think about that? This example brings us to the other side of things, in that sticking with what's already done is safe. There's a good chance that trying to push on and evolve wouldn't succeed. It may not resonate with the existing audience, may not find its own new audience, or perhaps just isn't very good. But that doesn't then mean those chances that were taken and new things that were added should then be ignored. They do still add to the texture of a setting, and later projects can build off those in cool ways. For example, Prometheus and Covenant had their issues, but Romulus integrated the black goo in an interesting manner. That said, sometimes something is added that really is just so bad and so damaging that forgetting it ever happened is the most healthy thing to do. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below if you prefer the safe option of doing more of the same, or the risky choice with something new. And how important do you think quality is when it comes to this topic? You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our frigate and space fighter design reference books. Alternatively, you can support us directly through YouTube by becoming a channel member. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.